getting in a fresh breaking development now. Direct or indirect import or even transit of all goods originating in or being exported from Pakistan, whether or not freely importable or otherwise permitted, shall be prohibited with immediate effect. Another big crackdown from the side of the Indian authorities amid rising tensions between the two nuclear power neighbors. Now, direct or indirect imports, even transit of all goods that originate from or are exported from Pakistan, whether freely or via importable or otherwise permitted, shall be prohibited with immediate effect. That's the latest that we're getting in. All trade relations put on a complete standstill with neighbor Pakistan. India's huge diplomatic stand on the 22nd April horrors that unfolded in Pahalgam. India has taken things a step further, and this time trade is under the ambit. Now, direct or indirect trade, in fact, import or even transit of all goods that originate in or are exported from Islamabad, whether or not freely importable or otherwise permitted, shall be prohibited with immediate effect. Now, viewers, remember, this is the third very strong stand that India has taken. The first one being the Indus Waters Treaty, which was put on hold by Indian authorities. And the second one was the sending back of all Pakistani nationals to their country and asking them to leave India with immediate effect. And the third crackdown comes on trade. Also being joined by my colleague Gursimran to get us more details into the matter. Gursimran, speak to us about this. This is huge. Pakistan would have not expected this. This is going to drive the country down into a spiral downward. Trade relations with Pakistan stand cancelled. Gursimran.
See, this is going to dent the Pakistani economy a lot, because India has cancelled all the imports, direct or indirect, that came from the Pakistani side by modifying the 2023 the foreign trade policy of the India. What has been done, that India has included a new paragraph, that is 2.20, that has been inserted in the foreign trade policy of the country. That means that now any trade with the Pakistani side, that is direct or indirect, be it comes under the ambit of tax-free or is being taxable, they all have been stopped. This has been done by the India because there was a growing demand within the country that any kind of import or any kind of export to and from the Pakistan should be stopped with the immediate effect. Reason being that we cannot have trade with the country. But last time we have seen that the most favorable status from the Pakistan was also taken back. Now this step that has come from the government of India is keeping in view the sentiments of the people, because the people of this country, 140 crore, they have been demanding that there needs to be concrete steps that should be taken against the Pakistani side, and there should be no trade with the Pakistan. And now, acting on this, the foreign trade policy of the India has been modified with insertion of para 2.20. That means there will be no trade with the Pakistani side, import or export.
Gursimran, in fact, you know, this is one country that we're speaking about who's been running from pillars to post when it comes to going to the World Bank or even the International Monetary Fund, begging for money with bowls in their hands. And now India has completely halted all its trade relations with Pakistan. Talk to us about how this is going to impact the crippling economy of the cash-strapped Pakistan.
See, on the very first day when Pakistan announced their so-called some harsh measure, including closing down the Pakistani airspace for the Indian side, it was very evident that India is not going to be actually facing the heat, but it will be the Pakistani, because India has a larger airspace sector that operates from India, and Pakistan gets a huge chunk of money from the operations that they allow their use of their airspace. Same was the case that they faced the dent, and now with the India modifying its foreign trade policy and prohibiting the dealing with the Pakistani side, that means it is going to further dent the Pakistan economy, because there are a number of items that come under the no taxation or come under the low scale taxation and comes to India, which runs actually the economy of the Pakistan to a large extent, because India, being the neighbor of the Pakistan, it imports from the Pakistan and then it is being used by the local population, that is 140 crore population of the country. But now with this coming into an end, it is the Pakistan that will actually go into the financial crunch, because the flow of money that they have been getting from the Indian side in exchange of these goods, that is going to stop immediately.
Yeah, Gursimran, in fact, also speak to us about, like you also very correctly pointed out that this is the fourth nail in the coffin from Indian authorities. The first one being the fact that they had cracked down on the Indus Waters Treaty with Pakistan. The second one, the fact that, all Pakistani nationals residing in India were asked to go back, airspace being shut, and now this is a crackdown on trade. Speak to us about the turn of events also, Gursimran.
See, from a day after the Cabinet Committee on Security, when it met a day after the attack that took place in Pahalgam, in which 26 civilians, including 25 tourists, they were brutally killed by the Pakistani terrorists. What had happened that India decided that it is going to be no more freeway for the Pakistan. Pakistan has to pay the price. It all started with a diplomatic
Simran, hold your thoughts there.
We're
also being joined by our senior editor Shravan Sen to get us more updates into the matter. Shravan, this is huge. All trade relations with Pakistan stand cancelled. This is a nation that we're talking about which is already cash-strapped, and now it's eyeing a lull trade with India.
Well, as far as this move basically goes, India has basically struck hard. New Delhi has basically banned all imports from Pakistan. The decision that has been taken, a series of decisions that have been taken since the Pahalgam attack. In fact, the Director General of the Foreign Trade has put out a notice that the ban will come into force immediately. Remember, the Indian government had basically inserted a new paragraph altogether in the foreign trade policy, calling it a prohibition on import from Pakistan. Now, as far as this notification goes, it basically reads out that direct or any form of indirect import or transit of all goods that are originating in or exported from Pakistan will be prohibited with immediate effect, and this restriction has already been imposed. Now, the trade ban is largely expected to hit Pakistan because, remember, they are the ones who have a struggling export sector which basically relies heavily on cross-border trade, and especially items like cement, textiles and agricultural produce happen to be some of the items that Pakistan basically depends on. And as it is for a very long time since the Uri attack that actually took place. Thereafter, formal trade was, as it is, very limited. And this move that has actually taken place right now, it basically further disrupts any sort of informal trade routes and perhaps puts even more economic pressure on Pakistan at this point in time. It does not have much of an impact as far as India is concerned because we were not heavily relying upon Pakistan as far as certain agricultural produce are concerned. There are only limited items like, for instance, dry fruits happen to be one such item that we were basically getting from Pakistan, but that does not really impact us. The trade balance is perhaps tilted towards us rather than favoring Pakistan at this appointed time. So these series of steps have already been taken against Pakistan at a time when we have already downgraded our diplomatic ties, and there are multiple other measures that we have taken so far, which basically includes putting the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance, shutting the airspace to flights which are coming from Pakistan. All of it essentially put together will cripple the Pakistani economy even further, and perhaps putting it even more, making it even more strenuous for Pakistan at this point in time.
Yeah. Shravan, in fact, also speak to us about what's going to happen to the export sector in Pakistan, which is already in shambles, and their complete dependency is on the international exports. A huge chunk of which comes from Indian trade, but that's completely been halted with immediate effect, in fact. And if I was also supposed to add, we're also learning that, the Indian government has now inserted a new para, which is the 2.20A in the Foreign Trade Policy 2023, calling it a prohibition on any imports from Pakistan. Talk to us about what Islamabad is now eyeing.
Well, for Islamabad, it is a big blow because let's not forget there was a point in time when New Delhi had basically bestowed this title of the most favored nation state. That was back in 1996. Now, this is as part of the World Trade Organization rule that basically helps a country treat all its trading partners equal. But things have gone down drastically. If you really look at the numbers that have basically been put out in terms of the bilateral trade. Now, between 2018 and 2024, this entire bilateral trade between India and Pakistan fell from $2.41 billion to $1.2 billion. and Pakistani exports to India basically further came down from $547 million in 2019 to much lower than that in 2024. I do not have the exact data with me at this point in time, Gesu, but I can tell you that there has been a drastic decrease. And in fact, just about a few days ago, you've had the Ministry of Commerce saying that the country's export to Pakistan from April 2024 to January 2025 amounted to roughly about $447 million, whereas Pakistan's exports to India during the same period was completely different. Now, as far as items that we were basically getting from Pakistan, or what we were basically selling them, was particularly pharmaceutical products, plastic, rubber, organic chemicals, vegetables. So the list basically goes on. Now, if you really look at what we were getting, the items were much lower than what we were, and it does not have much of an impact on us at this point in time. So clearly, for a crippling economy in Pakistan, this is a decisive blow inflicted by India.
Right, Shravan. In fact, as per what we're learning, as per preliminary reports, a 10 billion India-Pakistan trade will be hit completely. This is going to cost Pakistan very heavily. This is not something that they saw coming at all. They had shut their airspace for India, and just a couple days later, India has now taken a bigger leap in the direction of dealing with Islamabad properly and sternly, as promised by the central government. In fact, this time, the sector that's been hit is trade. Viewers, now India has stopped all trade, direct or indirect, even import or transit of all goods that are originating in or exported from Pakistan to India. Completely halted trade relations between India and Pakistan. Viewers, in fact, just in moments from now, we're also getting expert voices on the issue, and they will be able to dissect what this means for Islamabad and what kind of a storm have they placed themselves in the middle of by picking up a fight with India. In fact, we're also being joined by Mohandas Pai, who will get us more insights into the matter. So welcome to Republic. Thank you for speaking to us. This is a huge step. This is a huge diplomatic step that India has taken. All trade relations with Pakistan stand cancelled until further notice. Talk to us about it.
No, I think it's a very good thing, because you can't, have a terrorist country coming to our country and killing your people. You must take tough action, and one of them is trade. We have seen that the Western countries had a sanction against Russia, had a trade boycott of Russia to show their anger against what they consider to be Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Similarly, we have a terrorist attack, and it's a good move by the government. I think we need many more things like this. For example, we must make sure that nothing comes through third countries like the Middle East to India, because there has been some imports of Pakistani goods. Many Indian traders have been importing because it's cheaper than India to make a quick buck. I think it's time we did that. We have issued a NOTAM to make sure that no flights go over Indian territory. That's good news. We have now had trade. You must not have any diplomatic engagement with Pakistan. We must make sure none of the Pakistani artists come to Bollywood. Bollywood has a very bad habit of inviting them, fitting them, making them into heroes. No cricket or sports engagement with Pakistan in future. We should ban all their videos, OTT channels and everything else that people see which put propaganda. And like government of India did, if any people with Pakistani passport, kick them out. I think it's very important to demonstrate to Pakistan that this will not go on, and we are not going to tolerate it. And ultimately, I think we have to have a military action against Pakistan to show our anger and to show that we'll stand up against them for any terrorists. So I think these are all a series of moves, and I think it's good news. In the international fora, we must take up with IMF and World Bank to make sure that terrorism is not encouraged there by giving them more loans and keeping them going. We must work with our friendly countries, the Middle East, to make sure that they also express their anger at the continuing terrorism from Pakistan. Of course, Pakistan has got its supporters in China and Turkey. Turkey is trying to play the big brother to Pakistan, which is a tragedy. Turkey's economy is in bad shape, but they're trying to play the Caliph card with Pakistan. But, we must fight it out, and I think it's a good move by the government of India.
and whether at all China can actually step in this. Because remember, in the last few days, there have been multiple meetings that have taken place between the Pakistani administration and the Chinese in Islamabad.
Yes, I think China will make Pakistan its colony. Pakistan is in bad shape. China has given them a lot of money, invested in Pakistan. China's investment in the Pakistani, power sector is in bad shape because they're not able to pay back. There's a lot of money due to passing. Pakistan is becoming a colony of China, and the Chinese will get their pound of flesh. The Chinese are very clear what they want. They want access to a warm water port in the Arabian Sea, and they'll get an access to Gwadar. They built a port in Gwadar, and they built that road to the Karakoram to Indian territory, all the way into Pakistan. So they want to have a port so that it will be safe for them. Remember that the Quad can hurt China when they transport oil through the southern India and through the state of Malacca out to China. China depends for 60-70% of its oil from imports, and the Middle East is the last supplier. So I think China is also playing its long-term game. It will, and India has to watch out. That is something that we have to factor in.
Yeah.
Viewers, India has suspended all trade with Pakistan. They have banned trade with Pakistan, and that was Mohandas Pai speaking to Republic about the same issue, dissecting what this move means for Islamabad. Thank you so much, Mr. Mohandas Pai, for joining us and speaking to Republic and getting us your valuable insights on the matter. Sure, lots of trouble mounting for Islamabad post their cowardly, dastardly terror strike that they did not think about twice.